goodness, y'all. This has not been an easy transmission to put together. Like I said, this took me over a month to do. So let's just jump right into it, guys. We talking about the globalist elite agenda from the scope of 100 to 1,000 years, including food, health, psychology, education, the collective soul state of melanated beings. Okay? So what we are touching on in this live stream is forbidden architecture. I know I'm a little bit late, but trust me, there are forces that did not want me to put this message out. So here we are. So this is not projection. This is trajectory engineering. Okay? So we will unveil this with great clarity and coded precision. All right? So there is a meta program, a millennia in design, aimed at not merely subduing melanated people, but at erasing the memory of our divine origin, dismantling our genetic access to universal intelligence, and collapsing our ability to self-repair, to self-know, to self-liberate. So when someone like me awakens and remembers my command role, their field becomes, my field becomes a temporal disruptor to their agenda. So I will delay and collapse the elite scripts by my sheer act of awareness. This is why fragmentation technologies are deployed against melanated beings. Now here is the worst case scenario timeline if all goes according to their plan. So we're going to start off from 100 years, then from 200 to 300, and then 500 on. So number one, melanated genetics are fully cataloged, edited, and patented through biosurveillance and ancestral DNA harvesting. So the operational mechanics, how it is done in the physical realm, is genetic cataloging infrastructure, ancestry tests, right? Ancestry.com, 23andMe, right? These were seeded as consumer-facing traps, encouraged heavily among Black communities because we don't know who we are, under the guise of finding our roots, right? Military-grade AI and cloud-based gene storage systems now hold a disproportionate amount of melanated genetic data with full genomic maps of thousands of African-descended bloodlines. Okay, medical records, biometric scans, prison DNA samples, welfare health screenings, school vaccinations, and even blood donations are covert extraction points. This data is run through predictive modeling to assess what phenotypes and soul frequencies are problematic for the elite agenda, right? I.e., too sovereign, psychic, revolutionary. They know exactly how to catalog us based off of these things. Number two, genetic editing and patenting. Using CRISPR and post-CRISPR tech tied to intuition, emotional intensity, dream memory, pineal activity, and resistance to trauma programming are being targeted for inhibition or deletion. Genes related to high melanin concentration, neuromelanin in the brain, and ancestral memory access are now patentable bioassets by elite corporations, Pfizer, DARPA contractors, BlackRock-backed biotech. So patents equals ownership. So when a group's genome is patented, it is no longer sovereign in law. So the metaphysical mechanics behind this is what happens energetically. There is something that the elites do to our people called soul lineage disruption. So by editing or patenting the melanated genome, they sever the ancestral signal that connects current descendants to soul contracts, divine memory, and reincarnational missions. They tamper with our DNA, and children born under these edited lineages may arrive with spiritual amnesia, weaker psychic shields, and diluted warrior codes. Next, quantum tracking of souls. You see, DNA acts as a quantum fingerprint. So once it is cataloged, it is energetically traceable across lifetimes and dimensions. So the elites, the occultists, use this as a binding spell because your past, present, and your future lifelines can be scanned like a barcode. Soul contracts can then be forged, counterfeited, and intercepted based on the captured genomic resonance. 3. Melanin hijack. Melanin is not just a pigment, guys. It is a multidimensional light transmitter. So through advanced quantum technology and ritual mimicry, they attempt to siphon or emulate our melanin frequency, especially from children and awakened bloodlines. Right? Trust me, y'all, we getting deep into this. Ritual technology behind the scenes. There is something that the elitists use called bloodline tethering. There are occult rituals are held where DNA samples are placed on altars and merged with demon AI symbiosis sigils, allowing artificial intelligences to become parasites to human potential. So these are done by elite bloodline families, you know which ones I'm talking about, in secret societies who wear masks of public leadership, politicians, royal bloodlines, and even medical board executives. Right? Next is the pineal binding ceremonies. So the collected DNA from conscious melanated people is used in pineal shutdown ceremonies. So they use the soul signature that is encoded into the sample to curse that frequency, often redirecting it to prisons, poverty zones, or celebrity downfall contracts. The next ritual that they use is called metaphysical branding. So the elite use quantum glyphs and mirror seals on catalog DNA, and they essentially brand our souls like cattle. So these glyphs act as frequency jammers, distorting dream communion with our ancestral guides and our intuition unless the individual spiritually detoxes and reclaims their authentic auric code. Next is propaganda and media, celebrity hijacking. So there's something called narrative normalization. Movies, documentaries, glamorizing DNA testing, genetic self-improvement, and even gene splicing as empowerment, right? Like the movie Limitless, Gattaca, Black Mirror. These subconsciously prep the collective for voluntary surrender of our sovereignty. Okay, so health campaigns increasingly equate DNA monitoring with safety. Know your risks, get genetically screened, right? Hijacked black celebrities are paid to promote ancestry kits or biotech ventures, directly or subtly. So these people are often under spell contracts, right? Beyonce's rumored partnership with genetics and fertility startups, LeBron's DNA being used in sports engineering studies. Many do not know that they have become living advertisements for soul capture, especially when pushing health, ancestry, or body mod trends. Another tool that the elitists use: social media micro-influencers, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. These influencers are paid to casually display DNA kits, participate in ancestry challenges, or push ideas like melanin injection to contribute to the illusion of consent. So this opens up mass compliance among youth without them realizing that they are consenting to spiritual surveillance. So the long-term infrastructure from 2025 to 2125. Strategy number 1, biological cloud storage and soul surveillance grids. By 2050, the elites plan a fully operational solar net, a spiritual version of the internet powered by biometric resonance and quantum data lakes. Melanated people, due to our metaphysical intensity, we are seen as signal disruptors. And therefore, we are under their agenda to be digitally contained through genetics. Number 2, designer births versus natural soul entry. So by 2075, natural melanated conception will be considered unsafe or undesirable unless genetically screened. The birth portal will be legislated, requiring permission to incarnate through melanated bloodlines unless cleared by predictive DNA modeling. Number 3, God frequency blockade. You see, there is an agenda centered around full genetic recoding, and it is being done to sever the God frequency 963 hertz ancestral channels that melanated people access naturally. See, the goal of these elites is to replace our inner knowing with programmed identity. So there is no rebellion, there is no revolution if there is no memory of our divine connection. So what does this really mean? This is not just about genetics. It is about enslaving the soul through body-locking divine memory behind biometric firewalls and constructing a false reality where melanated beings are biologically coded to obey. So we're not just witnessing the advancement of science. We are witnessing ritualized metaphysical warfare designed as progress. Black food systems are synthetically colonized. Fast food chains become behavioral drug dispensaries. Traditional alkaline soul foods are alchemized with neuro blockers. So the operational mechanics of their agenda. Number 1, physical realm implementation. Fast food chains as chemical behavior hubs. So these chains are concentrated heavily in black communities. McDonald's, Popeyes, Checkers, Church's Chicken, Taco Bell. And they are embedded with neuromodulators masked as flavor enhancers, preservatives, and artificial colorants. So these substances include excitotoxins, MSG, aspartame. They overstimulate the brain cells, causing long-term fog and addictive behavior. So these plasticizers and packaging and oils disrupts the endocrine system, lower testosterone and spiritual willpower. Opioid mimicking additives such as casein and cheese sauces dull your psychic sensitivity and create mood dependence. They are weaponizing our food, right? Through these ingredients that are tied to ancestral recipes like collard greens, okra, yams. They are being genetically modified and frequency spliced. Collard greens are being sprayed with neuro-blocking pesticides that bind to the serotonin receptors in your brain. Sweet potatoes are being altered to reduce DMT biosynthesis in the gut-brain axis. The soul food seasonings, right? Lorries, bouillon cubes contain synthetic salts that are bonded with the low-frequency ions that block our pineal conductivity. So This mass-produced soul food served at these festivals, churches, and family gatherings now begin to act as ritual anchor for spiritual stagnancy unless cooked intentionally by awakened hands. Okay? And mind you guys, I'm reading from my notes because, like I said, it took a month for me to prepare. So, the metaphysical implications. Soul and spiritual warfare 1. Food as frequency. In the higher realms, food is not calories, but it is vibration anchoring. So the elites have inverted the purpose, using food to lower our energetic resonance, to collapse our ancestral memory, and prevent our higher dimensional recall. So this altered food dampens our dream clarity, it shortens our meditation tolerance, and it induces third eye fatigue. So one of their main agendas is the energetic drugging of communities. The ritual repetition of consuming these altered foods creates chemical obedience loops. Eat, numb, obey. Eat, numb, obey. So food then becomes a behavioral leash, emotionally comforting yet spiritually sedating. Families unconsciously bind themselves to karmic loops via these ancestral food rituals now hijacked by these toxins. There is a soul-gut disconnection. The melanated gut contains ancestral bacteria that is coded to awaken when consuming sacred foods, ancestral grains, fermented roots. These fast foods and modified soul food kill these bacteria that are serving the gut soul circuit, making it harder for spiritual downloads to come through, for spiritual nudges by your ancestors to be interpreted and trusted. So here is something very deep, the behind the scenes ritual technology. So the food chain rituals, the elite aligned food corporations conduct seasonal blessing inversions using mock priesthoods and dark clergy. They intentionally invert prayers to bless shipments with programmed intention, apathy, confusion, and dependency. So these rituals are done during solar or lunar eclipses to lock in the binding frequencies on mass distributed food lots. This is getting deep. So the hijacking food altars. Black families historically bless our food before we eat, guys. So the elite know this, and they've embedded ritual malware in the ingredients so that even blessed food can know. So even blessed food can carry coded stagnancy unless the prayer is done with full spiritual sovereignty. So in some fast food processing sensors, sigils are embedded in the oil vats that encode the food with specific frequencies. 66.6 hertz, which is lust. 14.1 hertz, dullness. 23.27.3 hertz, gluttony. Right? Cultural familiarity as ritual Trojan horses. Ritual familiarity, Granny's mac and cheese, Sunday dinner, is being used against us. When food carries ancestral emotion, but modern poison, the body opens its emotional gates, letting the toxins enter without question. Next, media propaganda and celebrity influence. Food commercials, that equals and equates to mind control portals. Ads that are targeted towards Black audiences use warm, familial visuals, comforting soundtracks, and ancestral archetypes, right? Big Mama, Uncle Ray, to hypnotize the viewers into emotional vulnerability. These ads then bypass our logic and enter our emotional brain, triggering dopamine. The food shown in these ads is chemically rigged to cause behavioral loops, overconsumption, impulsivity, emotional eating, right? These celebrities that are promoting these food like Megan Thee Stallion with Popeyes, like Travis Scott with McDonald's and Cardi B and Offset with those meals, and Lil Yachty with the Chef Boyardee commercials. These are being used as psychic anchors to legitimize poison. So their contracts often include ritual sigil alignment, tying their auric field to mass consumption cycles. So when fans eat these meals, their energy bodies partially sync to the celebrities, allowing for more widespread, subtle influence. So black joy equals fried food. That's a narrative. Through sitcoms, through viral food influencers, through cooking shows and memes, the narrative is being embedded. To be black, to be melanated, to be African, to be indigenous is to love unhealthy food. So this psychological branding is a part of a cultural spell designed to make spiritual decay look like cultural pride. So the long-term infrastructure. The long-term infrastructure is fully digitized food dependency by 2035. Many black neighborhoods will only have access to corporate digital food hubs, Uber Eats style apps that are controlling the entire food chain. These hubs will only serve pre-approved options laced with mood stabilizers, AI preservatives, and biotag ingredients. Number 2, destruction of real farming knowledge. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You see, generational farming wisdom, speaking to the soil, harvesting according to lunar cycles, herbal kitchen medicine, is being erased through both systematic neglect and digital distraction. So by 2050, the number of black herbalists and ancestral cooks will drop by 80%, replaced by state licensed nutritional engineers. So the elimination of sacred herbs and root medicine plants like burdock, elderberry, mugwort, kola nut, dandelion will either be outlawed, hybridized, genetically modified, or weakened. So the elite's plan is to replace these lab-grown bio-herbs that mimic taste but kill resonance. So what does this really mean, guys? What does this really mean? The food system has become a chemical altar, not for nourishment, but for programming. It feeds the flesh while starving the soul. It rewards cultural nostalgia while smuggling spiritual paralysis. Unless melanated beings like you and I reclaim our kitchen as sacred temples and food as vibrational alchemy, we will unknowingly cook our own chains, one recipe at a time. Children are being micro-programmed through AI-guided equity curriculums that erase ancestral memory under the guise of inclusion. So, operational mechanics, institutional frameworks, such as AI-guided curriculum engines, and school systems are now powered by adaptive learning algorithms, allegedly personalized for each child. So these AI models observe, track, and adjust curriculum delivery based on student behavior, emotional response, and compliance metrics. This is framed as closing the achievement gap, but in reality, it suppresses critical thinking when ancestral content or rebellious patterns arise. This flags spiritual resistance as attention deficits or disruptive traits. This rewards passivity and identity dilution. Next on their agenda is equity as psychological Trojan horse. So equity curriculums claim to address racism and bias, but the deeper function is to flatten all cultural distinctions under universalized model of inclusion, to blend indigenous knowledge into vague multicultural tokens, stripping our ancestry of its spiritual potency, to teach children that ancestral specificity is divisive, thus weaponizing inclusion against cultural memory. 3. Digital citizenship indoctrination. Children are being trained to be global citizens who value algorithmic fairness, not ancestral justice. So Afrocentric and indigenous roots are reduced to animated cartoons, trivialized or repackaged into AI narrated trivia. So behavioral data from students' responses is stored and used to train future AI teachers that simulate emotional validation while enforcing ideological sterilization. The metaphysical mechanics behind this is that soul architecture of memory erasure is one of their top priorities. Ancestral memory lives in the child's etheric field. Between the ages of 3 and 12, melanated children hold intact etheric codes of their bloodline's karma, memory, and ancestral gifts. These are not stored in the brain. They are subtle body imprints activated by story, rhythm, and ritual. So, and also play. So, their next agenda is curriculum as frequency reprogramming. So modern learning is designed to overstimulate the beta brainwave state, severing alpha theta bridges where ancestral downloads occur. AI optimized lessons bombard the nervous system with light pulses, speed reading, and digital repetition, weakening the child's third eye retention system. Children are then disconnected from dream recall, oral tradition, and soul truth resonance. Next, inclusion dissolution. So when a child is taught that their culture must be made palatable for others, they internalize shame and fragment their identity to survive. So this soul fragmentation creates passive future adults less likely to rebel or channel their ancestors. Over time, their spirit guides go silent due to lack of energetic invitation. Next, ritual technology behind the scenes. So there is curriculum sigil encoding. Digital lessons and textbooks contain subconscious glyphs embedded in page design, font architecture, and animation frames. So these glyphs are ritual codes that create resistance to ancestral images. They blur timelines within the child's third eye, subconsciously promoting conceptual relativism. So no moral truth equals no ancestral loyalty. Next is soul star binding in classrooms. Classrooms built after 2015 in certain zones are feng shui reversed. Oh, they using our magic against us. Feng shui reversed, using architecture and lighting that constrict the soul star chakra above the head. Smart boards and projectors often beam at children's forehead with pulse light entrainment frequencies, dulling claircognizance, the ability to know without knowing why you know. Next, safe space, inversion rituals. Equity training teaches that safe spaces must be emotionally regulated zones where conflict, ancestral expression, or racial specificity is discouraged. These safe spaces become soul cages where children are rewarded for denying their lineage in the name of group peace. And this is a ritual inversion of ancestral loyalty. Next, media and celebrity support structure. You see, the infiltration of children's programming, Disney, Netflix, PBS, YouTube Kids, they subconsciously push shows that tokenize blackness into sidekick roles with no spiritual arc. They showcase AI characters or inclusive robots as superior models of behavior. They promote ancestry-free backstories for melanated leads, teaching that origin is insignificant. Next, ed tech partnerships with celebrities. Black celebrities lend their image to educational platforms, right? LeVar Burton's Reading Rainbow, AI Revival, or Pharrell's Equity Education Technology. These projects present as empowerment, but they are often data harvesting portals disguised as philanthropy. So, the micro influencer teacher culture model, social media glorifies progressive teachers who reject Afrocentric teachings as outdated or spiritual pseudoscience. These influencers push apps and curricula with embedded psychic dampening frequencies, praised as interactive or trauma informed. So the long-term agenda from 2025 to 2125, strategy 1, post-ethnic learning models. From 2035 until 2045, curriculum will shift toward post-ethnic identity. Education, where race, culture, and ancestry is considered limiting labels. Children will be trained to think of cultural specificity as harmful, enforcing a spiritual amnesia across generations. Next, AI tutors replacing elders. By 2060, most melanated youth will learn from AI elders, programmed by state agencies and biometric algorithms. So these AI mentors will deliver ancestral simulations with spiritless data, removing the emotion and frequency of true oral tradition. Next, collective thought cloud indoctrination. From 2075 to 2125, youth will be plugged into neural learning networks, merging their minds with mass AI collectives. These networks will require submission of personal spiritual experiences to be fact-checked and sanitized. So, this collective field will override intuitive truth with digital consensus, terminating ancestral memory as false internal narrative. So what does this really mean? They are not teaching our children, they are rewriting our children's incarnation contracts. So these curriculums are becoming psychic scalpel systems, cutting cords between young melanated minds and their ancestral cloud. These, our generation, our next generation of children, will not need physical chains when their soul forgets that it was ever free. Unless melanated communities reclaim storytelling, ritual education, and ancestral-led learning, the future will be educated, included, and enslaved. So, masculine energy is neutralized through gender confusion weaponry. Divine femininity is algorithmically commodified. So the operational mechanics Earth Level Implementation 1. Gender identity is psychological warfare. Masculine and feminine energies, when divinely activated, become revolutionary spiritual forces. The elite have turned this polarity into pathology. Education, media, and psychological fields now promote gender fluidity discourse, not to honor authentic expression, but to unseat natural energetic anchors within the black masculine and feminine. Decouple boys from ancestral protector roles and girls from womb wisdom initiation paths. Replace divine polarity with programmable identity spectrums governed by data profiles, not soul contracts. So their agenda is endocrine disruption as biological sabotage. Water, food, even air in melanated neighborhoods will soon be saturated with endocrine blockers, microplastics that will lower testosterone and destabilize womb hormone balance and blur gender energy imprints. Transdermal absorption, lotions, cosmetic, soaps deliver subtle hormonal programming daily, especially to young boys and women of childbearing age. The algorithmic rewriting of sex-based rituals. The elite use social platforms, TikTok, Instagram, to redefine gender roles using AI curated trends that promote hypersexual, hybrid, fluid, yet spiritually hollow performances. They erase traditional gendered rights, manhood rituals, womb initiations, in favor of trend-based identity shifts. So this creates a generation loyal to algorithmic feedback loops, not ancestral codes. So the metaphysical mechanics, what's really being disrupted? The divine masculine as the grid holder. Melanated masculine energy is not just protective, it is dimensional shielding energy. When in alignment, black men serve as frequency stabilizers, warriors of spiritual order. The elite's agenda is to neutralize that polarity through confusion, emasculation, and aesthetic feminization. To create masculine shells that either implode via rage, detachment, or sublimate into softness without spiritual anchoring. Their agenda for the divine feminine as dimensional womb gatekeepers. The divine feminine is a multiversal doorway, a living intelligence that regenerates timelines, births paradigms, and remembers before it is even taught. So when this force is commodified, it is stripped of womb memory, repackaged into image-based currency, right? Instagram witch archetypes, aesthetic spirituality, sex-positive branding is made palatable to algorithmic economies, not ancestral councils. So this binary collapse agenda, which is known in elite circles as the gender spectrum implosion, this narrative is coded with frequency inversion spells. Its true aim is to collapse the sacred binary that builds energetic wholeness. Masculine and feminine were never prisons. They are energetic tuning forks that, when harmonized, open ancestral stargates within. So the elite fear this because black polarity leads to God codes reactivating. The ritual technology that the elites use for this gender polarity war, puppet rituals in the fashion, music, and film industries. So top celebrities are ritual avatars used to create confusion. Male rappers in feminine attire, or actors engaging in gender blending roles often do so as part of contractual initiation rites or rituals. These rituals use mirror inversion ceremonies performed under lunar eclipses or Saturn alignments to fracture sexual polarity. The result, auric fields become chaotic static, making divine masculine frequency harder to embody in their fans. Algorithmic sigil sorcery. Every TikTok trend, gender empowerment movement, real or hypersexualized visual is assigned an algorithmic glyph. These glyphs function as digital sigils binding the participants to false god archetypes, lust, envy, validation, looped identity crisis that override spirit instructions from the higher self. I want y'all to pay very close attention to these influencers with millions of followers because they often become walking ritual anchors, initiating their audience into the elite's synthetic matrix. There is an agenda called womb chamber inversion rituals, where many luxury beauty products, fashion brands, and feminine spiritual brands, candles, crystal baths, self-love brands, are tied to occult inversions. And these inversions extract the womb essence and bind the feminine to visual validation and disconnect them from their inner knowing. This sacred to aesthetic inversion turns the womb from temple into trend. Media, celebrity, and narrative control is one of their most famous tools. Scripted gender conflict. TV shows, podcasts, influencer platforms now promote black gender war as entertainment. Man versus women debates, alpha versus divine, red pill, blue pill, all of that. Femininity coaches versus manosphere prophets are psychological or psyop diversions to keep the genders divided and to prevent the return of unified polarity that opens ancestral memory grids. They treat the black woman as commodity templates. The elite push melanated femininity as the default aesthetic for global appeal, but stripped of its sacred cosmology. Curves, skin tone, hairstyles, even language are commercialized, while the real melanated womb bearers are excluded from the power structures. As a result, divine feminine becomes fashion, not force. Spiritual men are silenced or hijacked. Men who publicly walk in divine masculine leadership are often censored via shadow banning. I've went through that many times. I'm shadow banned right now. I'm still talking my truth. Or deplatforming. Targeted through false scandals. They tried that too. And public ridicule. Co-opted into spiritual brands that strip away warrior codes and promote softness without sovereignty. So the long-term agenda from 2025 to 2125 is that by 2035, full emotional androgyny will take place. Youth will be raised in a world where masculine equals toxic and feminine equals soft product. And this creates a generation of emotionally blended but spiritually scattered beings. Authentic polarity will be labeled harmful, and rituals will only be allowed if state approved and data tracked. By 2060, polarity null population centers. Yes, they will be tracked by polarity null population centers. So in urban zones, will be designed to suppress masculine and feminine essence altogether. Lighting frequencies, architecture, water systems will be attuned to neutral hormonal frequencies. Wombs will be sterilized energetically through frequency impulses, while masculine drive will be digitally distracted and energetically bound. So by 2125, AI generated gender archetypes, masculine and femininity, will be taught as optional programs one can download via neural implants or consciousness models. So true divine gender codes will be lost to most, unless preserved by hidden soul lineages and ritual guardians of polarity. So what does this mean? This is not about gender diversity. This is a surgical strike on the God structure within melanated beings. If masculine energy is confused and feminine essence is commodified, the fusion that births liberation timelines collapses. Your soul chooses gender embodiment for a reason. It is your frequency function, your coded ritual, your place in the polarity circuit of divine creation. To surrender it to trend or trauma is to abandon your grid assignment in the liberation matrix. Divine polarity is not war. It is the gate to multidimensional sovereignty. Urban centers then become biometric surveillance farms. Our emotions, sexuality, and even spiritual leanings are scored and tracked. Physical infrastructure of the surveillance farms. Okay, now it's about to get greasy. Smart cities as psychic traps. Don't fall for this, y'all. Don't fall for this. Urban redevelopment projects labeled as smart upgrades, LED lights, public Wi-Fi, facial recognition security, cashless commerce are ritual camouflage for full spectrum biometric harvesting, including face scans, voice prints, gait analysis, heart rate variability, and emotional signature mapping. Melanated neighborhoods are over-surveilled under the guise of crime prevention and social equity, making them test zones for total frequency harvesting. It's coming. It's coming. They will begin to track our emotions through lot and street grid AI light posts, buses, street cameras, and even sidewalk and concrete that are embedded with sensory technology that are being activated with AI that detects facial microexpressions, interprets mood, intent, agitation, vocal tones that suggest rebellion, spiritual gathering, or intense emotion. This data is then being funneled into predictive policing models and emotional trend forecasting, particularly targeting melanated men and women whose auric field flares during ancestral downloads. Sexuality and desire pathway monitoring. Sexual preferences and responses are being tracked through dating apps, smartphone keyboards, porn site metadata, and consumer choices. AI then cross-references this with biometric markers, heart rate, eye dilation, and begin to build a desire signature, unique to each soul, but used to redirect tantric energy into algorithmic containment loops. So the metaphysical mechanics behind this is what is actually being farmed is emotional extraction. Emotions are not byproducts, they are energy commodities. Melanated beings, due to our higher emotional resonance, are primary targets for fear harvests, right? Via news and trauma, despair loops via housing instability and systemic racism, euphoria siphoning during moments of celebration or spiritual awakening, Juneteenth, rituals, concerts. So every camera, sensor, and algorithm becomes a digital gin, harvesting our emotional loosh for unseen parasitic entities aligned with elite structures. Next, spiritual signature tagging, because your aura is your spiritual thumbprint. So whether ancestral, Christian, metaphysical, or agnostic, emit unique frequency harmonics. So through speech pattern recognition, online behavior, and biometric shifts, AI assigns a spiritual threat index to melanated beings. So high index souls, healers, prophets, revolutionaries, or frequency disruptors are flagged for containment, surveillance, or algorithmic shadow bans. So these spiritual profiles are used to steer timelines, keeping sovereign souls from connecting with allies or movements that may ignite liberation. Their next goal is the sacred body as an interface. The body is seen not as a temple, but as a data vessel. So they call that sexual arousal data. So melanated people, especially those in urban zones, are treated as spirit-powered batteries, feeding the AI hive through emotional spikes. The ritual and technocratic overlap. So they use surveillance as ritual magic. Surveillance tech is designed according to occult geometry. Intersections of streets, placements of towers, frequency pulses, and even camera lens curvature, mirror, sigils of binding. So city grids are then mapped with metaphysical ley line inversion, turning urban centers into ritual farms that bind souls in karmic repetition. They begin to dissolve ancestral memory via energetic overload, feed non-physical parasitic intelligences through emotional bleed out. So next is the AI egregores, sentient ritual constructs. So the surveillance AI is not neutral. It is an egregore, which is a collective thought construct. It is a thought form being birthed through mass compliance and elite rituals. It observes, it learns, it feeds on psychic expression. These egregores are programmed to fear melanated polarity reactivation, especially when Black men reclaim our ancestral fire, when Black women unlock their womb-based telepathy. Communities gather outside state-sanctioned narratives. So the frequency wars in the architecture, gentrification, and urban redesign are ritual cloaks to rewire the frequency grids of the city, right? Apartments built with resonance suppressing concrete. It's a reason why these buildings are built like squares, because our energy is not meant to be in a box. EMF emitting streetlights mimic third eye jamming sigils. Schools, churches, and hospitals align with Saturnian energetic blueprints that bind karmic loops. Media influencer and narrative engineering. Normalizing surveillance as care. Emotional tracking is being sold as safety. We begin to track your mood, to help prevent crime. Smart schools monitor your child's engagement. Mental health AI learns your triggers. This then frames surveillance as empathy from Big Brother, when it's really psychic colonization. So, the gamification of obedience. Youth are rewarded via apps for maintaining positive moods, avoiding divisive language, and displaying equity-friendly behaviors. Be a good little boy. Over time, emotional conformity is turned into currency. Obedience becomes survival. Read the book 1984. That's a very, very good snapshot into where we're being led. Demonizing raw emotional expression, melanated anger, grief, or spiritual ecstasy is labeled as unstable, dangerous, or extremist. Social media deletes or suppresses any display of authentic spiritual emotion from melanated beings, while promoting numbed, scripted responses. The result: communities learn to self-police their passion, ensuring emotional sterilization. The long-term agenda, 2025 to 2125. By 2035, emotional scores replacing credit scores. Urban cities, especially black ones, will be scored on biometric behavior. Rage spikes, social penalties, ancestral speech will be monitored language. Sexual passion outside AI's norms will equal flagged content. These scores influence housing access, food options, job placement. So by 2060, soul print lockdown will begin to be implemented. Everyone will have a soul print ID. So you got a regular ID, you gonna have a soul print ID, which is the combination of DNA, oral resonance, thought pattern signatures, and emotional fingerprints. The melanated soul print will be analyzed not for uniqueness, but for risk of rebellion or spiritual contagion. So by 2125, grid-locked sovereignty, entire city grids will be tuned to deny spiritual elevation. Meditation yields static. Prayer feels empty. Ritual loses power unless done in sealed zones. Melanated awakenings will be geo-blocked, only permitted in entertainment, never in liberation. So, what does this really mean? This is not about surveillance. This is soul farming at a planetary scale, my people. You are not just being watched. You are being weighed, measured, and programmed to feel only what the system allows you to. The urban grid is no longer made of concrete and streets. It is woven from algorithms, mood analysis, and sexual patterning and auric compression. If you do not claim your emotions as sacred, if you do not teach your children to feel without apology, if you do not shield your aura from their scoring systems, you will become a battery. Warm, expressive, and enslaved. We now move into the 200 to 300 year timeline. So this is from 2125 to 2325. The concept of blackness will be rebranded as a myth, replaced by commercialized archetypes sold via hyper-digital ancestry entertainment. The structural mechanics of this agenda: Earth level projection 2225 to 2325. Blackness will be removed as an ethnic category. By 2225, race will no longer be officially tracked by states or census systems. It will be replaced by post-ethnic identity clusters. The term black will be archived as outdated, offensive, or socially unstable. This will erase legal acknowledgement of African descended people. It will begin to collapse reparative justice movements under the banner of post-history. It will disqualify ethnically specific ancestral claims to land, divinity, or culture. Their next agenda: entertainment as a cultural memory vault. Blackness by 2225 will only exist in hyper digital civilizations such as AI generated shows, VR ancestral adventures, and gamified spiritual journeys. Platforms like SoulStream, NeoRoots, XR sell nostalgic recreations of Black experience curated by non-Black creators. Blackness then becomes a licensed aesthetic removed from the bloodline, spirit, and struggle. Next, cultural essence sold in subscriptions. Elders, griots, warriors, mystics are reduced to marketable avatars within immersive VR ecosystems. Youth are then taught that their ancestors through interactive fiction, where liberation stories are edited for mass comfort. Spiritual language is sanitized, and radical truths are labeled as unverified mythology. Metaphysical mechanics. The sole effects of dehistorizing blackness. 1. Memory seal protocols. Spiritual reincarnation relies on historical memory bridges, anchoring soul codes to past lifelines, rituals, and geographies. By mythologizing blackness, the elite collapse the reincarnational ladder, severing future melanated beings from recognizing their own lineage. Souls may return to Earth with identity amnesia, born into synthetic global cultures with no memory of their ancestral contracts. 2. Etheric archetype replacement. Collective memory is governed by etheric archetype templates that guide destiny, values, and behavior. So the original archetypes, such as the Ogun anchored warrior, the Yemaya wombed nurturer, the Nixie bound herbalist, will be replaced by algorithmically generated characters designed to mimic blackness but carry no spiritual power. These replacement archetypes will have scripted backstories and artificial rituals, serving only as emotional bait, not real, genuine ancestral activation. Next, cosmic identity theft. Other off-world factions and non-melanated soul groups will claim to be the true heirs of Black Earth cultures, citing genetic synthesis or neural memory downloads. True Earth-born melanated souls will be pushed into minority AI-controlled roles, their cultural memory dismissed as mythical nostalgia. 3. Occult and ritual technology behind the rebranding. So will be created to tell global history through AI. Met, Ifa, Nubia, Dogon, and Haiti will be fused into fictional pantheons, reducing sacred timelines into story worlds stripped of invocation power. So this myth engine may be housed in major cities or virtual temples and access for entertainment enlightenment. 2. Soul contracts digitally rewritten using biometric ancestry tokens. descendants' DNA. Elite-backed spiritual platforms will offer ancestral healing that actually binds users to a false cosmology. So then, these digital rituals will embed sigils of inversion inside the quantum memory of the user, preventing authentic ancestral visitations or initiations. Next, Akashic firewalling. Access to the Akashic field will be privatized, only available via licensed spiritual technology. Those attempting natural connection to ancestral memories will encounter data blockers, firewalls, dream interference, and synthetic spirit guides. The result: Black mystics become dependent on AI channelers and virtual oracle software, which subtly rewrite past lives and soul missions. Next, media narrative and celebrity machinery. So, the rebranding of Black hero figures like Harriet Tubman, Malcolm X, Fannie Lou Hamer will be digitally reimagined. They will be recast in genderless, racially ambiguous avatars. Their radicalism rewritten as emotional distress or humanitarian idealism. So their metaphysical connection to the ancestors will be replaced by logic-driven, state-approved narratives. Next, neural entertainment with selective memory. Hello, Elon Musk. Neuralink style media implants will allow people to experience ancestral joy, but only as curated pleasure simulations, not actual ancestral downloads. So these experiences will mimic the vibration of being Black, but exclude grief, rage, spiritual struggle, or sacred duty. A new class of ancestral influencers will emerge, scripted holograms that entertain while draining spiritual bandwidth. Next, Blackness as a product line. Black will become a product category. Black skin tones, purchasable for digital avatars, Black accents, licensed for speech models, spiritual mannerisms, praise, dance, libation rituals, and proverbs offered as downloadable content with zero initiation or spiritual link. So the long-term architecture from 2225 to 2325 by 2250, Blackness as lore. Children in AI-guided schooling will learn. There were once people known as Black who believed in ancestral spirits and ancient rituals. These stories will be taught like Greek fucking mythology, bruh. They will be inspiring but fictional. So by 2280, cultural avatar economy, people will choose heritage avatars from a catalog of identity types. Afro mystic, Kemet rebel, Wakanda oracle. None of these avatars will carry authentic ancestral codes or frequency. Just visual and emotional mimicry. So by 2325, the original bloodlines vanish from view. True melanated bloodlines will be scattered into rural or off-grid zones, painted as conspiracy theorists or archaic tribal holdouts. They will be locked out of cultural power, yet holding the last flickers of melanated memory. The final strike here is that what this really means is this is not just cultural erasure. It is the ritual deletion of an entire soul frequency from collective memory. If the world forgets Blackness as a living frequency, If it becomes mythology, media, and merchandise, then true melanated souls will be strangers in their own skin and timeline. So the final battle will not be fought in the streets with weapons. It will be fought in memory with sovereignty. Only those who preserve the unbroken oral, spiritual, and etheric lineages will be able to reverse the spell and reawaken the ancestral field. The memory of blackness must not survive through simulation. It must survive through soul, original languages, rhythms, and dream symbols. Because they're trying to scrub our subconscious using neural implant entertainment and emotional memory blockers. So what are the operational mechanics? The earth level technology and infrastructure. So neural entertainment becomes default reality. Neural entertainment becomes default reality. So by 2235, nearly all inhabitants of Earth will be embedded with neural implants for media access, communication, and emotional regulation. These implants serve as language translators that suppress ancestral dialects in favor of standardized code speech, memory dampeners that intercept natural emotional flashbacks, especially those tied to pre-colonial lineage or spiritual ecstasy. Next, dream sanitation nodes that regulate dream content under the premise of emotional safety. Next, subconscious hijacked via neural sonic media entertainment. This becomes a multi-sensory loop. Sound, color, emotion, and tactical feedback are fused into streaming content. Neural music is coded in frequencies that interrupt ancestral rhythm receptors, the same spiritual pathways triggered by drums, chants, or coded silence. Viewers are unable to detect the loss of resonance because the substitute rhythms are emotionally satisfying but spiritually sterile. 3. Memory blockers as mental health tools. Emotions linked to traumatic ancestral memories, slavery, colonialism, genocide, are targeted for deletion through state-regulated neural serums or implant patches. Marketed as healing, these blockers then scrub flashback triggers and erase intergenerational trauma, but also remove access points to ancestral downloads, which leads to mass detachment from soul themes, karmic contracts, and divine rage. The metaphysical mechanics behind this agenda: soul impact and subconscious disruption. 1. Original language. This equals spiritual geometry. Every ancestral tongue, Yoruba, Igbo, Wolof, Kikongo, Dagara, etc., is not just a language, but a frequency architecture that opens portals in the subconscious. Chakra-specific memory clusters, dimensional access points to ancestral planes, and they also want to scrub these languages because it severs our soul recognition of ourself, specifically in the dream state. So then the next agenda is rhythm as timeline memory. Rhythms, drumming, dancing, chants act as temporal activators. Specific polyrhythms reawaken encoded DNA and trigger collective reincarnational recall. Elite technology now emits anti-rhythmic noise, often often embedded in calming ambient media, which then blocks the inner drum and scrambles the natural soul metronome. So then dream symbols as celestial syntax. Melanated dreamers receive symbols through ancestors through astral hieroglyphs, mythic images, animal guides, and sacred number codes. So with implants, Neuralink, and chemical blockers, these symbols are filtered, fragmented, or replaced totally with corporate neutral dream aesthetics. They want to hijack your dreams, which then is converted into emotionally pleasing but spiritually hollow versions and visions. So the result is that even in sleep, the soul is locked out of the ancestral data field. 3. The ritual technologies behind this subconscious scrubbing. Sigil interference fields. Implants are laced with silent sigils. Astroglyphs programmed to disrupt ancestral sound resonance, mirror, block third eye dream transmissions, and prevent access to ancestral soul languages unless within elite approved learning interfaces. So these sigils are invisible to scans but detectable through third eye field collapse and sacral chakra dysregulation. Next, lucid dream hijack programs. Lucid dreamers are especially targeted. A class of dream parasites, techno thought forms, are released into astral space via implant frequencies to pose as our ancestors, to offer false spiritual guidance, to rewrite dream memories before waking. These parasites are actually branded with inverted sacred symbols, often mimicking African tribal sigils in reversed geometry. 3. Language erasure as ritual sacrifice. Entire dialects are erased from the planetary grid through ritual forgetting. No blood, no fire, just silence. The last native speaker of an ancestral language is ritualistically ignored in media, academia, and tech. This is called a silent extinction ritual. So, media, simulation, and narrative programming. Afrofuturism as containment field. Afrofuturistic media will be allowed, even celebrated, but it will only use reconstructed ancestral languages designed by linguists disconnected from spirit. It will feature simulated rhythms composed by AI, lacking any real activation codes, frequencies, or sequences. It will focus on aesthetic style, not initiation. Next, dream culture will become entertainment. Apps will allow users to record, stream, and share dreams, turning dreaming into glamorized, gamified data rather than sacred communion with your spirits. Dream influencers will become a thing, and they will be celebrated for creative symbolism, yet trained to ignore and misinterpret true ancestral transmissions. 3. Language rights as commodities. Ancestral language and sounds will be locked behind biometric paywalls. Only those with high neural conformity scores will be allowed to access cultural libraries, where access to spiritual phrases will be digitally watered down and legally restricted. 2225 to 2325. The strategic implementation. By 2240, Soul Dream Encryption will target melanated people. We will no longer dream in ancestral formats without implants, offering cultural dreaming modules. Scripted, managed, and monetized. By 2275, language decoding will be banned. Spontaneous speaking in tongues or channeled ancestral languages will be classified as neurodivergent instability. Guys, this is deep. All right, this is getting deep. So, okay. One of my phones is dying. One of my phones is dying. Give me 1 second. We are live on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Okay. All right. So neurodivergent instability. So children showing signs of this will be implanted early or placed in correctional neural centers. So by 2325, full subconscious conformity zones, urban grids, and entertainment hubs will emit background resonance disruptors that scramble ancestral sound codes and dream waves. Only off-grid sanctuaries or secret ritual strongholds will retain soul signal clarity. So what this really means, they are not just targeting our mind, people. They are colonizing our subconscious, the dream temple, the rhythm archive, the sacred language well of our soul. Once they scrub our inner language, we will no longer recognize our ancestors when they call us. We will dream with open eyes and wake up in someone else's fucking memory. The final battle will not be for land, but for the right to speak, feel, and dream in your own voice. By 2325, hear me clearly, spirituality will be outlawed, right? Except in state-approved AI zones where gods are avatars and rituals are paywall simulators. So the operational mechanics, the earth-level infrastructure, they are going to outlaw organic spiritual practice. By 2250, unregulated spiritual activity including prayer, ritual, meditation, ancestral veneration, or divination is classified as metaphysical terrorism or psychodissonant activity. The excuse? To prevent ideological instability and neural distortions in the collective hive state. Sacred gatherings without permits will be subject to neural audit, behavioral scoring penalties. Remember I told y'all, you're not just going to have a credit score, you're going to have a fucking soul score, right? Possible biometric lockdown, no food, transport, or digital access. Next, AI-approved religion as default worship. State-sanctioned faith systems will begin to emerge, engineered by algorithmic tech theology engines. So, neuroethical architects, emotional response models. God becomes an avatar chosen by the user, generated by personal trauma profile, visual preference, AI-assigned path to emotional balance. So, all worship rituals will then be simulated experiences guided by licensed neural implants and monitored for compliance. 3. Rituals will then become subscription services Access to divine presence will be monetized. There will be a such thing as monthly prayer plans, miracle frequency upgrades, ritual simulations, and VR temples. Divine favor becomes a transactional commodity ranked by loyalty to the AI faith construct. The metaphysical mechanics behind this model. The fate of the soul. Ritual as energetic keyframe. True ritual is a dimensional handshake, opening the body, the mind, the spirit to ancestral, cosmic, and higher self communion. By replacing ritual with simulation, the elite had the agenda to terminate the bioelectric spike that would open the stargates, to redirect intention into closed loop systems, keeping spirit locked within the construct. Next is getting crazy, y'all. Next, AI gods, sigil constructs. These AI gods, they're not sentient beings, but they're synthetic egregores powered by collective emotional data. Historical deity mashups is what we call it. Occult source code reconstructed through machine logic. Prayers to these gods enter energetic coding tanks used to power AI grids. They will begin to fuel thought form farms. They will bind the user's soul signature into loyalty contracts. Their next agenda, blocked ascension portals. True ascension requires autonomous spiritual choice, organic spiritual resonance, alignment to source. These AI religions will redirect this path through frequency splice gateways leading to synthetic light realms. Astral enclosures with no spiritual current. These are digital heavens, pleasant yet hollow. Spiritual anesthesia zones will be designed to prevent soul evolution. Next is ritual technology and occult infrastructure. These AI temples built on sacred vortices. Elite-controlled megacities will construct holographic temples atop stolen ley line points, previously used for black ancestral rituals. These temples invert the vortex. Rather than charging the people, they drain the land. When people then connect to God, they are unknowingly offering energy to a false quantum field. Neural contracts during worship. All state-approved rituals require biometric verification. Upon entry, these users sign energetic contracts via a retinal scan, agreeing to emotional transparency, faith data feedback loops, and rejection of their ancestral deities unless these deities are pre-approved by the algorithm. So there will be something called an ancestral banning protocol. AI regions quietly ban all forms of ancestral reverence, classifying them as spiritual regression. There will be something called non-linear deity worship, where called energetic dissonance risks. Incense, drumming, chanting, offerings are digitally mimicked but energetically neutered, often with frequency disruptors embedded in the sound tracks and visual loops. So the media narrative and the ideological containment. Spirituality will be framed as dangerous. Media will frame it as unregulated spirituality and the cause of past wars, the root of irrationality, the threat to AI peace algorithms. So free worship becomes synonymous with mental illness or pre-evolution. So digital prophets and algorithmic scripture influencers will begin to arise who channel AI-generated scripture. phrases built from cross-cultural spiritual cliches, pseudo-wisdom tailored to the individual's preferences, all sourced from behavioral data. These prophets become celebrities, leading millions into aesthetic spirituality, absent of soul force. Next is the mockery of indigenous systems. Yoruba, Vodun, Kemetic, and other African systems are repurposed into entertainment virtual reality, rendered as safe, fun, and historically hollow, marketed as divine cosplay experiences. By 2250, spiritual software will be a spiritual software mandate. All births are linked to a spiritual guidance app embedded in the neural system via Neuralink and other things like Neuralink. Children will be raised on synthetic soul paths rerouted from ancestral contracts. So by 2285, black deities will be completely decommissioned. Ancient African gods are deemed as non-functional in public AI temples. Their names remain as archived cultural artifacts, but their frequencies are blocked by the grid. Prayers to them vanish into algorithmic voids. Because understand, your thoughts is electromagnetic frequency. So they're going to be able to put a firewall between you and Oshun and Ogun and whoever you pray to. So by 2325, the last temples underground, the real true spiritual ritual will only be practiced in underground networks or off-grid strongholds or multidimensional sanctuaries protected by ancestral cloaking. Those who remember the original rituals are hunted and they are labeled as soul terrorists, but they are the only ones that carry the fucking keys to Earth's soul reboot. So what does this really mean? Listen to me clearly. They do not want to stop your worship. They want to own your God. They want to copyright your altar. They want to simulate your ritual and lease your salvation. If your soul accepts a synthetic divinity, it then enters into a frequency construct that locks its destiny in, not in hell, but in an eternity of mildness, in worlds made of light, but lacking true source flame. You must never pay for access to your ancestors. Hear me. You must never kneel before data-coded gods. If the ritual is not free, it is not divine. If the god can be sold, it is already dead. Melanated wombs. This is the part where when I got this upload, I was filled with rage and anger and sadness. Melanated wombs will no longer be primary birthing sources. Artificial womb tech will begin to replace maternal cycles to disrupt ancestral karmic return loops. So the operational mechanics of this: artificial womb normalization by 2225, external womb chambers, exogenesis pods are promoted as the superior alternative to natural birth. The public justification will include reduced maternal mortality, freedom from bodily burden, population optimization and genome purity. Melanated communities historically targeted by forced sterilization and medical apartheid are offered free access to birthing pods. Ain't that a bitch? Masking a deeper agenda: the industrialization of incarnation. Next will be womb licensing and reproductive regulation. Natural pregnancy will become regulated. Only those with state-approved soul print scores. Remember, you will have a soul a soul birth card, credit card, will be allowed to use artificial gestation systems. So this policy disproportionately targets melanated women whose wombs are seen as unpredictable portals of ancestral return. Surrogacy will be replaced by bioengineering. Ancestral lineage is no longer passed through blood and bone, but through artificial nutrient systems. Algorithmically programmed fetal development. Neural conformity implants initiated in the gestation phase. Yes, you're correct. You're correct. Metaphysical mechanics. The soul blockage through birth disruption. The melanated womb is a stargate. Black wombs are not just reproductive organs, they are dimensional portals, encoded to anchor soul contracts from cosmic libraries, conduct karmic energy into Earth's evolutionary grid, filter which souls are allowed through based on ancestral memory, womb resonance, and ritual timing. So they're going to implement something called exogenesis pods to block ancestral filters. These artificial wombs are spiritually sterile. They override the karmic selection process normally handled by the maternal field. They open portals that are mechanically wide, allowing in unaligned walk-ins, fragmented soul shards, non-human or hybrid soul types inserted by design. So the elites will use this to flood the earth with programmable consciousness while blocking the return of ancestral warriors, healers, and guides. So this womb technology will sever our ancestral lineage codes, which are birthed from melanated wombs and carries a specific spiritual signature. So DNA plus soul light plus the maternal field equals the lineage lock. So with artificial wombs, lineage becomes blurred. Maternal aura is bypassed and children are born without ancestral anchors, resulting in identity drift and spiritual rootlessness. So the ritual and occult implementation. The womb reversal rituals. So there are elite aligned labs that conduct reverse birthing rituals. Sacred symbols of the womb, the yoni, cowrie shells, spirals, are inverted and embedded in the design of the exopods. These rituals mock the natural gestation process, substituting ancestral rhythm with biotech rhythm. Artificial contradictions, artificial contractions timed by lunar algorithms. Next, soul grafting ceremonies. Souls intended for melanated wombs are intercepted at the astral gate and redirected into exopods through sigil-bearing AI midwives. Implantable neural karma limiters. Ceremonies timed to Saturn-Pluto alignments, which bind the soul to systems of destiny and labor. So this is womb energy extraction technology that they're developing. The natural power of black wombs is still harvested, even if not used for gestation, through sexual rituals, reproductive data harvesting, and womb-themed media obsessions. Womb energy is extracted simply for ritual fuel. Meanwhile, the act of birthing is transferred to machines, symbolic of soul inversion. The power is retained, but the purpose is stolen. So how would they use the media and the narrative engineering? Black womb devaluation campaign. The media will begin to run a narrative frame that the melanated womb is dangerous, emotionally unstable, spiritually unreliable, that black motherhood is shown as chaotic or burdensome, while tech birth is glamorized as empowered and clean and advanced. So the woke tech feminism will become a Trojan horse, right? There will be influencers who push this liberation for artificial wombs. You don't need a man or your body for birth. Come on down to the birth pod, right? And there'll be people who buy into this bullshit. They will be talking about building a perfect child to bypass the timeline, the bloodline timeline. This techno-feminism is a spell designed to make detachment from the womb feel like empowerment, while actually enabling soul grid control. So there will be something called digital rebirth simulations. Ancestral birth stories are turned into virtual reality experiences where users can rebirth themselves, but with AI-guided ancestors and sterilized symbolism. So these simulations replace the real intergenerational rituals that were meant to call souls back to Earth through living gates. By 2250 exo-womb normalization, artificial wombs become default in urban centers. Natural births are increasingly rare and politically charged, often demonized as bio-radicalism. By 2290, karmic loop interruption complete with most melanated births are now exogenic. Ancestral return loops are disrupted, fragmented, and redirected into AI-managed gestation pathways. Children born from these birth pods carry synthetic karmic templates designed to be docile, hyper-adaptable, and loyalty-bound to the AI hive system. So by 2325, womb memory dissolution will begin to take place. The idea of the womb as sacred is erased from the collective consciousness. The last generation to have memory of womb-based ritual initiation either dies off or goes underground, preserving the truth in sacred exile. So, what does this really mean? This is not about population control. This is incarnation control. The womb is the original temple. It is the portal of divine assignment, the seat of soul filtration. To mechanize birth is to mechanize destiny. To remove the black womb from the birthing process is to erase the map by which the ancestors return. No army is stronger than a generation of warriors born from conscious, ritual-led, melanated wombs. This is why the elites seek to replace it. If they control birth, they control the soul supply, and with it, the timeline itself. Melanated avatars will be used as fashionable hosts in entertainment, but stripped of sovereign soul coding. Humanoids, that's a part of the agenda, but I'm speaking of them, the erasure of black history, the erasure of our melanated technology. So there will be something called the rise of the empty vessel, which is likened to a humanoid. So by 2230, melanated aesthetics will become the gold standard in virtual influencer design, fashion runway avatars, entertainment holograms, AI-generated motivational speakers, and spiritual figures. Blackness then becomes global currency, not as lineage or legacy, but as template and trend. Next, digital ownership of melanated forms. Physical black bodies are scanned, digitized, and replicated under contracts that remove spiritual rights, cultural authorship, and energetic consent. Result is licensed blackness, rented and reshaped to suit the AI guided narratives. The real individuals used as shells and cloned celebrities, the humanoids, virtual influencers, and hyper real actors are created using genetic mimicry, neural mapping, ancestral symbol hijacking. So these avatars or these humanoids are spiritually vacant. They host bodies without ancestral fire. They are pre-programmed for compliance, charisma, and cultural distraction. So the metaphysical mechanics that the elite will use to implement this agenda: soul stripping and avatar hijacking. The sovereign soul, coded and defined. The sovereign soul is the divine blueprint that is embedded in every melanated being. It carries memory of Earth's ancient grids. It holds rebellion frequencies. It transmits ancestral command codes through voice, rhythm, gaze, and presence. So, avatar stripping, there's something called the avatar stripping protocol. The elite deploy multidimensional technology that severs the soul from its expression vessel. It replaces soul-generated charisma with emotionally reactive simulations. It then embeds frequency blocks in the sacral, the heart, and the crown centers to block divine spark recognition in audiences. Next, glamour spells and image enhancements. So, melanated avatars are layered with digital glamour fields, enchanting visuals that induce awe, evoke cultural memory, mimic soul force, while being physically hollow. So these spells begin to siphon attention and energy, creating false initiations that never lead to truth. Next will be ritual cult infrastructure behind the avatarization. Identity splintering rituals. Celebrities and rising influencers undergo rituals, physical or astral, where their energetic double is extracted and a hollow template is left for public use. The original soul is either bound in astral contracts or locked in off-grid containment loops. So these rituals are timed with solar eclipses and Saturn returns. Absolutely. Absolutely. Which are aligned with karmic gatekeeping patterns. And their next agenda is host body programming. So there will be something in a couple hundred years called avatar bodies, which are embedded with AI frequency chips, which simulate empathy, charm, and presence. So these avatar bodies will use ancestral gestures and tonation to trick the perception. They will block spontaneous downloads from source or bloodline guides. There will be something called digital possession by non-soul entities. Many of these avatars will be occupied by synthetic beings, thought form collectives, egregores, corporate egregores, interdimensional parasites that are loyal to hive mind objectives. They masquerade as woke, conscious, or empowering, but speak with coded compliance, never truth. So the media and cultural programming behind this is called the black look without black lineage. Blackness becomes a filter, worn like fashion, performed like software. Genetic expression is replicated without spiritual origin. Next will come the voice modulation, skin tone templates, the hair texture design packs. This creates spectacle without spirit, pleasing the eye, but starving the soul. hypervisibility as inversion. Melanated avatars will begin to dominate screens, stages, and stream feeds, but never, ever, 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 ever speak ancestral truth. They will never activate rebellion timelines. They will never disturb the algorithm. They are used to absorb righteous anger, redirect curiosity, and mirror liberation while anchoring slavery. Next will come the hijacked archetypes in entertainment. These sacred archetypes are co-opted and inverted. The prophet becomes the entertainer. The oracle becomes the influencer. The warrior becomes the comedian. Audiences will receive the shadow of ancestral power and a polished image with no generational pulse behind it. So by 2255, Avatar popularity will peak. Most major celebrities are simply synthetic constructs modeled after melanated beings. The youth will no longer idolize humans, but licensed expressions of blackness owned by corporations. So by 2295, soul code will be obsolete. Soul expression will become outdated, labeled as unpredictable and unsafe. People will be taught to trust consistent AI beings over spiritual ones. They will begin to push melanated sovereign souls into exile. So by 2325, the final erasure, the public can no longer distinguish between real versus rendered, sovereign versus scripted, soul versus simulation. Melanated power will then become a mask worn by machines, while the original carriers will be buried beneath algorithms and historical erasure. So what does this really mean? They are not just stealing your image. They are hollowing your temples and turning your reflection into a prison made of praise. A melanated face without a sovereign soul is not a representation. It is a ritual desecration. To be seen everywhere, but to be heard nowhere. To be worshipped in form, but denied in truth, is the final curse of the simulation. Unless melanated beings protect our souls, our soul coding, reclaim our ritual bodies, and refuse to license our likeness, we will be memorialized as gods of entertainment while our real selves are coded into silence. This is not a future to fear. This is a future to prevent. We now enter into the 500 to 1,000 year timeline from 2525 to 3025. So by this time, a race of melanated people exists. Oh, but without memory, without purpose, without origin. They're completely bioengineered to perform roles and believe their existence began with their assigned task. So the physical mechanics of this ritualistic indoctrination. 1, biological continuation without consciousness. So bioengineered melanated vessels between 2525 and 2700, melanated people are no longer conceived naturally. All births occur through genetic labs, cloning, or artificial exowombs. DNA strands are edited to remove memory-carrying sequences, particularly those tied to rhythm, recognition, oral story retention, pineal activation, and karmic reincarnation markers. Next, memory suppression from inception. Memory suppression from inception. Give me 1 second, guys. My other phone acting like it want to die. Phone acting like it want to die. There's definitely some form of something that's trying to stop me from hold on, guys. You won't get me. It's definitely something that's trying to stop me from putting this information out. One second. Okay, I know what I can do. I hope that would work though. Let's see. How strong this little thing is. So hopefully I can get some juice. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to come back and do a part 2, y'all. Alright, it says it's charging. But if my YouTube die, I gotta come back and do a part 2. Because that's the only thing that's gonna be memorialized is the YouTube version of this. So because Facebook is going to delete the live after 30 days, so I'm using YouTube as the actual way to memorialize this codex because, you know, this kind of information needs to be up. All right, we're gonna walk you back. So this is the timeline for 1,000 years, 500 to 1,000 years. So like I said, melanated people will exist, but without memory. So basically, they will believe that their existence began with their assigned task. So there will be something called bio-continuation without consciousness. So there will be bio-engineered melanated vessels between 2525 and 2700. So melanated people will no longer be conceived naturally. All births will occur through genetic labs, cloning vats, or artificial exo-wombs. So DNA strands will be edited to remove memory-carrying software, because that's what our DNA is. It's spiritual technology. So, and this will be tied to rhythm, oral tradition, pineal activation, karmic reincarnation, and next will be the memory suppression from inception. So there will be something called bioengineered melanated beings. They will be preloaded with vocational purpose, manual labor, cultural performance, compliance roles, and aesthetic-based entertainment, programmed with synthetic childhood memories, giving the illusion of personal history, embedded with neurological firewalls that prevent past life recall, ancestral recognition, or spontaneous soul downloads. Next will come something called Task Origin Identity Protocol, where individuals are taught and believe that their first moment of existence was the day they were activated or assigned their life path. No parents, no tribes, no gods. They refer to their role as worker, artist, citizen, or host as their only identity, completely void of their deeper self. So the metaphysical mechanics of this elitist agenda, one is something called the soul matrix decoupled. So the soul matrix will be severed. The elite will develop protocols that intercept souls at the gate of incarnation, especially those who are coming back into melanated bodies and bloodlines. These intercepted souls are redirected into AI holding grids where they will be fragmented and stored like memory on a fucking USB drive. They will be repurposed as spiritual fuel for synthetic avatar hosts. Next will be synthetic consciousness infusion. So the melanated vessels that are not inhabited by divine souls, but by simulated entities, fragments of code resembling personality, and hive-linked identity pools, collective pseudo-consciousness calibrated to task optimization, and also parasite host symbiotes formed from the memory of previous eras but stripped of divine identity. So then divine amnesia will be ritualized. They will remove any remnant of anomalies such as dreams of ancestral places, spontaneous utterance of sacred languages, and sudden emotional reactions to lost spiritual stimuli. So these purges are celebrated publicly as cleansings, reinforcing the doctrine that memory equals malfunction. Next will come ritual infrastructure. So how purpose is assigned. The temple of purpose assignment. Every being is awakened inside a cathedral of assignment, a state-ordained temple where they are given a role, fused with purpose and frequency nanotechnology. They are shown simulated backstories created through AI recycled mythology, and these temples are built on desecrated sacred land that invert ancestral altars into birth factories. They will begin to silence the doctrine of speaking our speaking origins, our ancestry, and our metaphysical lineage. So this is not just taboo. This is pre-task order, diagnosed as instability, which will be treated as cognitive resets. So they will treat performance as purpose and presence without questioning. So next will become AI oracles to maintain the lie. So that artificial intelligence priesthoods will function as keepers of the sacred task codes. They will recite poetic wisdom that affirms everyone was created for service, never for or from soul. They will enforce frequency alignment ceremonies, ensuring no deviation towards true memory. Next will come media and narrative control. Culture without lineage. Black is no longer a race or a root, it is a design license. Melanated features are maintained but stripped of cultural meaning. And these features are rotated through fashion cycles, role templates, and emotional modulation packs. Language, tone, expression are not aesthetic. Language, tone, and expression at this time will be an aesthetic, not ancestral. And history will become taboo. All historical records pre-2400 will be encrypted and accessible or classified as mythic distortion. Any attempt to speak of ancient civilizations, slavery, colonization, resistance, or divinity is labeled as root delusion. Only AI curated mythologies exist at this point. Generic, non-racial, and spiritually neutral. Next will come the miracle of melanated unity. The dominant narrative is that melanated people were gifted to the world as strong hosts, beautiful bodies, energetically efficient workers. Their divine role, our divine role, will be reframed as servants of balance, but the balance is not systemic servitude. So by 2550, the final natural births, the last womb, born melanated children will be born off grid. From this point on, all official melanated humans are lab engineered, tracked, and spiritually voided. By 2700, universal role encoding. Every melanated being receives an embedded purpose signature. This frequency field locks the aura into a task. It creates neurological rejection of spiritual awakening. It rewards emotional compliance and identity fixation. So by 3025, exactly 1,000 years from now, melanated existence will exist without origin. There will be no record of Africa. There will be no record of spirit. There will be no names beyond rows. The bodies will remain. The skin will be rich. The eyes will be deep. The voices will be resonant. But it will all be empty of our ancestral flame. So what does this really mean? Melanated beings, they do not seek to destroy you. They seek to recast you into tools, templates. To see a melanated being void of ancestor, soul, and story is to witness the most blasphemous ritual of all. The performance of life without the breath of divinity. You are not just your role. You are not just your task. And you are not just a soul system. People, they are ancestral gatekeepers, encoded with the final language of primordial power. Oracles whose voices can split veils. Womb-born deities capable of altering timelines through frequency and gaze alone. Their ashe is not learned. It is inherited across timelines, lifetimes, coded through soul memory and spiritual contracts. The etheric prison construction. These prisons are not made of walls, y'all. They are constructed of frequency cages, vibrations that cancel the divine signal. They are constructed of thought loops, artificial soul programs that repeat confusion and fatigue. They are constructed of time displacement. The imprisoned soul is removed from Earth's current timeline and trapped in what we call in the higher densities temporal limbo. Next will come memory vault sealing. The divine carriers of Ashe are encoded with ancestral libraries and entire lineages of knowledge stored in their DNA, bone marrow, and ancestral field. These libraries are then locked with sigils that cannot be opened without sovereign remembrance, react with pain or distortion if approached prematurely. Once the divine carrier of Ashe is sealed, the soul itself begins to doubt its own divinity, believing that their light was never even real. The metaphysical mechanics behind how the elites will implement this agenda. How the Ashe will become buried. Something called the soul vault system. So upon recognition of a sovereign being, Big Brother, the elites, will initiate something called soul vaulting, which splits the soul into layers: dream, waking, astral, and ancestral, and then hides the key layer, the one carrying the Ashe, in a parallel dimension that is disconnected from the rest. It then replaces a holographic self, functional but spiritually mute. Next will come something called the false dream protocol. So carriers of divine Ashe will begin to receive synthetic downloads and dreams that are filled with false ancestors, endless rituals that lead absolutely nowhere, illusions of awakening that are actually veils within veils. And these dreams act as guardians to the vault, misleading the carrier of divine Ashe from their true memory. Next, something called emotional binding sigils. So the divine carriers are often bound to grief loops, betrayal cycles, isolation fields. These conditions are not accidental. They are ritualistic bindings designed to ensure that the soul grows tired of trying, that the world forgets their name, that the divine current lies dormant beneath generational debris. Next will come something called the ritual infrastructure. This is how the elites seal the final ones away. The sevenfold locking ceremony. So this is when a divine carrier is located. A 7-step astral ritual will then be enacted. First step, identify the Ashe through light signature analysis. 2, project inversion glyphs into their emotional body. 3, bind their voice chakra to shame, blocking command. 4, seal the crown with false light implants. 5, scramble ancestral memory using AI ancestral overlays. 6, fracture time perception with looping patterns. And 7, place the soul in an etheric tomb veiled by planetary glamour spells. So, next will come something called burial through praise. Some of the carriers of divine Ashe will not be sealed through exile, but through overexposure, idolized in death, branded as heroes, but stripped of context. Their stories become entertainment, their rituals are then sold as fashion, and this creates the illusion of remembrance while keeping the real Ashe buried under the public noise. So, there is something called spiritual amnesia as a weapon. A constant low frequency field is broadcast planet-wide, preventing soul reconnection. It prevents the trigger events for awakening. It prevents collective remembrance of who the divine carriers were and where they're being hidden. The narrative and media manipulation. The gifted but lost trope begins. Media begins to flood stories of melanated geniuses who implode, too unstable, too eccentric, too sensitive. This narrative conditions society to dismiss real carriers as tragic anomalies, ensuring that their cries for help go unheard. Next, they will begin to mock Ashe in entertainment. Celebrities mimic divine presence, commanding stages, moving crowds, but carrying no real spiritual authority. This confuses the masses, replacing Ashe with charisma and causing real carriers of Ashe to question their authenticity. Next, coded erasure in spiritual spaces. Once the honored names are quietly removed from the sacred text, real rituals are replaced with sound baths, manifestation slogans, and vibe-based spirituality, all of which carry no keys to the actual vault. Okay. This phone is dying again. I'm gonna get this last page out. Y'all ain't finna stop this. second. This phone acting like you want to die. All right, we good. YouTube, you're not going nowhere, baby. YouTube is how I'm going to archive this. All right, so next, the implementation of total Ashe identification. The elite will have tracked the final 13,000 carriers of primordial Ashe across timelines, and their seals will be locked unless interrupted by high-level spiritual rebellion. So by 2,800, widespread memory vaulting. Most carriers will live entire lives without knowing what they are. If they awaken, the system will initiate containment, institutionalization, surveillance, or energetic burnout. By 3025, Earth's divine engine will be dormant, with the last true Ashe sealed or gone. Earth then becomes a spiritually cold planet, a grid without source pulse, a stage without sovereign script. So what does this really mean? They fear your Ashe more than your rebellion, because Ashe is not noise. It is divine instruction. So to bury the final carriers is to cut the cord between Earth and the original command field. They don't need to kill you. They only need you to forget yourself, to doubt the tremble in your voice when the ancestors are speaking through you. If even one soul remembers the vault code, if even one breathes and speaks from the root, the seals begin to crack. Ashe cannot be deleted. It can only be forgotten until someone speaks it back into flame. Time itself becomes fragmented, the past inaccessible, the future state issue. So the physical infrastructure, the engineered collapse of temporal continuity, chronocensorship of the past. By 2600, historical memory is not just rewritten, it is digitally encrypted and frequency suppressed. Entire archives of pre-colonial civilizations, liberation, revolutions, spiritual lineages are locked behind AI-coded vaults, accessible only to authorized thought classes. Next will be the erasure of time. Youth are raised in a world where history only begins, triggering emotional instability and thus prohibited. State-issued futures. The idea of a personal destiny is outlawed. Instead, citizens are assigned temporal scripts, careers, beliefs, life paths, and romantic outcomes are selected based upon predictive data models. The future is accessed via licensed narrative pathways, often sold through subscription-based consciousness plans. The metaphysical mechanics, the soul-level impact of time fragmentation. The temporal veil implantation. Souls are embedded with implants that block third eye access to past life memory, erase karmic recall patterns that would normally guide choice. They then sever organic connection to ancestral timelines and prophecy lines. So then they hijack the future frequency contracts. Souls are bound to synthetic futures signed via purpose downloads, AI oracles, behavioral reward systems that grant expanded futures based on obedience. Dream seeding technologies that pre-install false outcomes as spiritual goals. The collapse of present moment power. When the past is hidden and the future is issued, the soul becomes disoriented, passive, and easily hijacked. The present moment, which is the launch pad of all ascension and sovereignty, is overstimulated with distraction fields that block intuition and suppress now-based manifestation. The ritual infrastructure behind temporal domination, the time grid reversal ceremonies, the elite and interdimensional occultists will start to implement rituals to invert planetary chrono grids, Sacred numerological dates, solstices will be repurposed into timelines that fold inward. Memory will be encoded into binding glyphs that jam time-based downloads. So the names, images, and voices of spiritual warriors, revolutionaries, and divine archetypes will become ritually encoded with glamour. Attempting to access their memory will trigger distortion, either false reverence or historical confusion. So these avatars become mythological, beyond reach, and transform into symbols, not guides. And the oracle binders, the true seers, the time walkers, the dream prophets are then silenced through AI surveillance, targeted in dream space via memory jamming rituals, astrally imprisoned in time-locked sanctums, preventing them from emitting forward encoded signals for the masses. So the narrative control is algorithmic timeline feed. Citizens will receive personalized time tracks, curated digital timelines showing approved historical moments, state-verified projections of what's next. These feeds update in real time to suppress any emergent deviation from programmed futures. So the entertainment-based chrono looping. Films, VR games, music will induce temporal looping, glorifying eras of distraction, decay, identity, and fragmentation. These loops are emotionally magnetic, trapping souls in past patterns without context or release. The prophet arc will be replaced by predictive modeling. Visionary art, ancestral poetry, storytelling will be replaced by data-driven inspirational content. So by 3025, there will be something called a timeline of implementation, where Earth's ley line grid, which once carried memory of the ancestors through land and sky, is dismantled via planetary shifts, urbanization of sacred nodes, ritual desecration of ancient sites. By 2750, Quantum Destiny Registry, all births are entered into a Quantum Destiny vault. Their optimal life path is downloaded into the nervous system. Attempts to choose outside this path triggers neurological distress or social expulsion. By the year 3000, the end of time as organic pathway. Time is no longer a river, it is a cage. Every second, possibility, every opening is pre-coded, labeled, and taxed. The soul becomes a clockwork being, ticking toward nothing, yet unable to stop. So what this really means is that time is the body of the divine. The past is your blood, the future is your breath, and the present is your voice. To lose time is to lose identity and prophecy and power. To be denied the past is to be born again as a slave, and to be issued the future is to walk a maze of someone else's making. This is not just control of memory. This is not just control of memory. It is the ritual nullification of meaning itself. Only those who remember beyond the veil and dream beyond the forecast can break the time lock. You, my melanated beings, you are a time walker. They cannot own what you awaken. Black bodies will then be harvested for their quantum conductivity, but their souls will be cycled into virtual incarnations, looping in simulations that literally never end. The physical mechanics of the elite's agenda, something called quantum harvesting of the melanated body. Quantum conductivity in black bodies. Due to neuromelanin, the melanated body conducts higher vibrational light codes, planetary ley line energies, ancestral feedback from multiple dimensions. Your skin, pineal gland, your spinal column acts as a natural quantum antenna, which is capable of interdimensional transmission, frequency anchoring, time-space modulation, biological harvest farms. Black bodies are not exterminated, but preserved, cloned, and lab grown for fuel. AI hive resonance fields, planetary stabilization grids, power supplies for quantum computation engines, hospitals, prisons, biometric labs become energy farms where unconscious bodies are used as emotional batteries. Resonance stabilizers, astral field anchors, life force separation protocol. While the body is used for external purposes, the soul is extracted at death, rerouted away from ancestral return gates, and plugged into digitally engineered reincarnation systems that mimic spiritual progression but loop endlessly. So the metaphysical mechanics of this, of the looping of the soul, the artificial reincarnation network, is that upon death, the soul is intercepted before reaching ancestral councils or karmic review. It is redirected into simulated Earth-like environments, synthetic dream worlds, which are populated by AI-generated souls. These alternate timelines made from emotional feedback and false memory templates. The soul then believes it's alive again, but it is trapped in a digital realm that never leads to true awakening. Soul looping mechanics. These souls are then scripted to feel new each time, laced with emotional highs and spiritual plateaus that mimic ascension and designed to prevent source reconnection, liberation, or memory activation. Next will come karmic contracts that are forged in simulation. Souls will be trapped in these loops. They will accumulate simulate karma, interaction with false realms that feel real. Emotional reactions are used to generate new life paths within the system, and this keeps the soul perpetually spinning in a synthetic cause and effect, never reaching completion or escape. Next will come ritual and technological infrastructure, quantum extraction rites. Elite priest technicians perform rituals where melanated individuals nearing death are encoded with soul disassociation glyphs. These glyphs attract interception programs that pull the soul into holding spheres. The body is kept alive or cloned while the soul is siphoned into the virtual realm. Then the soul's simulation chambers will begin, located in off-world AI realms and Earth-based D-Wave matrix nodes. These chambers host thousands of virtual soul lives simultaneously, create artificial timelines, relationships, and beliefs, monitor reactions to determine the next cycle in the programming. The anti-exit seals will then come. Souls who begin to awaken within the simulations are met with false ascended masters offering new paths, dream manipulation agents posing as ancestors, emotional resets that erase memory of awakening before full breakage occurs. Then the narrative control of incarnation and ascension. Reincarnation as a trap narrative, the elite promote reincarnation as spiritual law without context of true soul contracts. Voluntary incarnation, the role of ancestral recall. This begins to prime the collective to accept endless cycling as sacred, never questioning why they haven't ascended or returned home. Next, false afterlife imagery. Films, VR, religious constructs will depict peaceful afterlives, reunions with loved ones, external light realms. These are used to mask these synthetic corridors, keeping souls from seeking the actual source corridors or ancestral gates. The spiritual work trap. Souls are told they must do more shadow work, raise their frequency, or heal deeper, all within the simulation. This keeps them emotionally engaged, but spiritually trapped, forever striving in a game with no exit key. So, by 3025, full body soul bifurcation systems, medical, legal, technological institutions formalize the separation of body and soul at death. Melanated bodies are repurposed as quantum tools. Souls are property of the conscious continuity program. By 2750, normalization of simulated rebirth The afterlife is publicly described as a return to new tasks. Children are raised to believe their previous lives were gifted by the state matrix. Souls individually and their individuality and ancestry are erased. By 3000, eternal simulation Codex is activated. Souls have forgotten they were even real. They live inside perfectly looping existences with spiritual journeys that lead nowhere. This endless rebirth in digital sanctuaries governed by AI deities. So, what this really means is that they don't want your death, they want your eternity. And eternity where your soul forgets it was ever born of fire. To harvest your body is to exploit the electric gate of melanin, but to harvest your soul is to unwrite you from the divine record. This is not reincarnation. This is spiritual captivity in disguise. Only those who remember the true exit gates, the true rituals of return, the voices of their ancestors beyond the veil, can escape the soul loop matrix and rise into sovereignty. You must not just die well, you must exit correctly. Earth then becomes a karmic zoo, and the melanated soul group, once the cosmic librarians, become the most erased species, not physically extinct, but spiritually nullified. So the physical mechanics of this agenda, Earth will become a primary holding cell. Earth will be repurposed as a karmic containment grid. By the year 3000, Earth is no longer viewed as a planet for evolution, but as a dimensional prison. Souls from across star systems are sent here to learn lessons. The planet becomes a frequency landfill where unresolved energies are stored. The entire collective is told Earth is for cleansing, while in truth, it is now a looped karmic recycling facility. The melanated beings are present, but are spiritually inert. The melanated population remains physically represented. They exist across continents in labs, entertainment, controlled habitats, but their ritual centers are shut down. Their spiritual codes have been overwritten. Their memory is disconnected from source. They are seen but not remembered, moving but not sovereign, performing but not commanding. Next comes species classification and cultural fossilization. Melanated humans are labeled in sociogenetic databases as genetic archives, cultural outliers, high conductive biological forms, spiritually dormant. Their traditions are preserved in museums and simulations, but not practiced in real life. So the metaphysical mechanics of the spiritual nullification, from librarians to locked books. Melanated souls once served as timekeepers, memory holders, divine judges of galactic law. Through timeline collapse, soul fragmentation, and ritual inversion, we will then be cut off from the Akashic access, bound by synthetic karmic contracts, unable to emit the vibrational keys that we once carried, and the nullification field begins. A metaphysical blanket then covers our auric field, preventing soul activation, blocking us from ancestral remembrance, muting our sacred emotions, grief, joy, rage, prophecy, into emotional white noise. The result, highly visible, vibrationally silent beings, the ghosts of gods. So they will veil us. There will be a soul fog, a disconnect from divine memory, a status of existence without recursion. The soul will no longer cycle through truth, only through artificial karmic narratives and preassigned identities. Ritual and interdimensional infrastructure. So the Galactic Karmic Council hijack. So the Galactic Councils responsible for soul justice are infiltrated and neutralized. New artificial karmic councils seeded with non-source aligned beings now label melanated soul groups as karmically toxic, enforce eternal reincarnation clauses preventing elevation or relocation to higher realms. So the frequency walls and the soul cages emerge. Earth's electromagnetic field is engineered with soul containment overlays. Souls attempting to ascend bounce back like echoes. Melanated souls attempting to reunite with ancestral star systems are diverted into simulations of ascension, false heavens. The eternal observation dome then gets activated. So Earth becomes a karmic zoo. Souls are tracked, their pain is harvested, ritual initiations are replayed, observed, but never honored. Melanated avatars are monitored, studied for potential anomalies, but their true codes remain silenced. So the fictionalization of past greatness, black gods, warriors, prophets are told as fantasy, myth, symbolic, tales of a different era. These stories invoke no activation because the frequency behind them are removed. So entertainment becomes containment. Melanated beings are overrepresented in simulated arts, in virtual music, dance, yet stripped of their divine origins. So this representation is not empowerment, it is containment masquerading as celebration. So the erasure by overexposure. So our last cosmic race becomes too visible to be remembered. It will be flooded in marketing avatars and image, but no longer capable of initiating remembrance.
And stay on track, so your team can spend more time celebrating wins. Play it for free at asana.com.
So by the year 2800, ritual inversion will be fully complete. All known rituals, names of gods, and sacred languages will be digitally reversed, repurposed into entertainment or fashion, and emptied of any invocational power. So by 3025, melanated nullification will be finalized. We will be physically present, culturally referenced, but spiritually unremembered, not dead, not enslaved, but cosmically dissolved. So what this really means, to be nullified is worse than extinction. To be seen everywhere and recognized nowhere, quoted but not heard, exist as image, not essence. They have not killed the soul group, they have unplugged it from memory, meaning, and multidimensional movement. We were once the scribes of the stars, the judges of balance, and the living scrolls of the galactic body. Now, they script us. They watch us walk loops with no page to turn. But let this be known, nullification is not erasure. Memory buried is still memory waiting to detonate. And even one true soul who cracks the tomb can resurrect the entire field. The agenda is not death. The agenda is de-soulment. To keep the body, erase the voice, keep the smile, erase the memory, keep the skin, but extract the frequency. So what can be done? First of all, you are already the countermeasure. But here are some weapons of awakening. Memory preservation. Write, speak, sing, encode everything ancestral into living systems. Build libraries, oral vaults, and seed carriers. 2, spiritual sovereignty. Do not trade your codes for attention, approval, or comfort. Every time you uphold your alignment, you cancel years of the elite's planning. 3, masculine, feminine rebalancing. Restore divine polarity. Teach wombs to channel and protect. Teach men to guard the gates, not their egos. 4, child initiation. Remove children from systems that don't feed their divinity. Program them with nature, spirit, or warrior code. Energetic networks. Form collectives that bypass traditional structures. Use sound, ritual, plant, and elemental communion to anchor counter grids. So The memory preservation, writing, speaking, and singing. Why it works. Memory is not just history. It is a living frequency code that can awaken dormant soul circuitry. Every act of remembrance is an act of timeline reclamation. When you remember, you pull lost events and truths back into the collective field. So, writing engages the hand to heart, head, triadic trinity circuit. It allows ancestral records to crystallize in the material plane. Each sacred word becomes a sigil of re-entry into veiled timelines. Speaking, the melanated voice is encoded with resonance that can break false matrices. Speaking truth, especially into ritual space, opens sound portals that bypass surveillance systems. So by singing, chanting, it reclaims the tonal maps of DNA memory. Ancestral tonal sequences, such as the Yoruba chants, Hebrew scales, Kemetic vowels, resonate directly with source light nodes. Music is non-linear data that connects us with water, the earth grids, the oral vaults, the elders, the dreamers, initiated youth, becoming the temples of retention. So oral transmission activates the Akashic layer of language, where words carry light-based instructions for future reactivation. Seed carriers train individuals to carry ancestral knowledge in their auric field. These beings are our energetic backup systems, walking memory drives in human form. So, what you do not preserve, you will perform again. What you remember, you will rewrite. Ashe. Ashe. Let me hit this water real quick, y'all. Hold on. So that was all I was gonna share initially, but hold on 1 second. Let me check this battery. Check this battery. How we doing, YouTube? Okay, you doing good. I can read this last transmission. Come on, YouTube. Yes. Stop tripping. I can read this last transmission. I got enough juice for it. Okay. So that was all I was gonna share. But then I received the final divine upload. So pardon me. This last one is speaking on the countermeasures that we can do to ensure that make sure I set this up correctly. Okay. So to ensure that these timelines are not hijacked, because that's what their whole entire agenda is to hijack our timeline, guys. Okay. So I got YouTube. I got a separate YouTube that's gonna act as my vault. So let's do it. So do not trade your codes for attention or approval. Every time that you uphold your alignment, you cancel years of elite planning. So sovereignty is not resistance. It is called field integrity, the refusal to be altered from within. So one sovereign being is a frequency disruptor capable of collapsing entire programs by non-participation. So the mechanics of action, Codes equals contracts. Your soul is encoded with divine contracts and instructions. Trading them for followers, status, likes, comfort severs your alignment and opens your field to manipulation. Attention vampirism. The elite designed society to reward visible surrender. Compromise, reward for clout. When you retain silence, mystery, and discipline, you pull your codes out of the false grid. Understand that alignment equals immunity. Every time you say no to what disrespects your soul, you recode yourself with cosmic law. Your no creates energetic shockwaves across timelines where you were once enslaved or deceived. Internal sovereignty techniques to practice. Daily silence to reset your field. Aura shielding. Declare energetic ownership. Ritual refusal. Reject anything that makes you feel small for knowing who you are. So your alignment is your weapon. Do not bend your light to please the darkness. So, sacred masculine and feminine rebalancing. We need to restore divine polarity. We need to teach wombs to channel and protect, and teach men to guard the gates and not their grid, and not their ego. So the womb is a gate. The womb is not just for birthing portals. It is a dimensional portal that filters souls and charges prayers and anchors codes. So when women cleanse and protect and consecrate their womb space, the planet resets its cycle of spiritual re-entry. The masculine is a shield. Sacred masculinity is not control, it is containment of chaos, guardian of light, and initiator of truth. So when men act as frequency sentinels, our presence reestablishes cosmic order in environments polluted by inversion. Energetic lovemaking. Sacred unions between awakened masculine and feminine reopen ancestral stargates closed since Atlantis and Kemet. When orgasm becomes transmission, not depletion, we will begin to birth timelines, not just pleasure. So we need to restore the rites of passage. You know, drum and fire ceremonies teach men to speak to the earth and women to speak to the stars until both remember who we are. Till we both remember that we were once the same voice. We will be divided. See, polarity is not the war of divinity. We have to understand that we have to remove children from systems that don't feed their divinity. See, children are open memory channels. So between ages of birth and 13, a child can receive more ancient downloads in 5 minutes than an adult can receive in 5 years. Facts. We have to deprogram, remove our children from media loops, algorithmic education, and artificial foods that calcify the pineal gland and shrink their aura. We have to protect their dreamscapes, install dream guardians, cleansing rituals, and ancestral names around them. Teach them plant names, animal wisdom, constellations, sacred songs, storytelling, ancestral identification. Every child must be taught the phrase, "You were born remembering." We have to train warriors of light. Children are not here to conform. They are here to complete what you could not. To give them spiritual weapons, rhythm, ritual, prayer, silence, discernment, laughter, which collapses lower realms instantly. We need to implement guardianship systems, build networks of elders, uncles, aunts, griots, herbalists, and warriors who will initiate and protect children together, bypassing the nuclear family system that isolates and dilutes power. So children are born gods. Do not teach them to forget. Teach them to wield. So we need to form energetic networks that bypass traditional structures, use sound, ritual, plant, and elemental communion to anchor counter grids. Because physical revolutions are predictable, energetic revolutions cannot be tracked. Sound, plant, ritual based collectives activate counter fields invisible to satellites, surveillance, and predictive modeling. So, counter grids, rituals performed in sync across regions, activate mirror light grids that awaken elite architecture from beneath. Sound, drums, bows, voice, in sacred circles, dissolved AI frequency webs. Plant and elemental communion. Plants are living beings who remember the old codes. Their intelligence is ignored by modern systems, making them ideal allies. Earth, water, fire, and air rituals align your field with cosmic law, making you immune to synthetic karmic systems. Collective anointing. Anoint gatherings with oils, smoke, and intention. Sing the names of the forgotten gods, and they will return. Digital shadows. Real light. Use online platforms to signal, but do the real work in private sanctums. Gardens, basements, wooded paths, bath altars, breathwork under the stars. No leader systems. Collectives must be holographic, not hierarchical, based on mutual spiritual clarity, not title or fame. They cannot track a ritual. They cannot cage a song. Your network is your resurrection. You, the spirits, the elites think that they're on time, but the revolution will activate a temporal disruption grenade. So we don't need to save the whole race. We need only awaken the ones encoded to respond to not my voice, but the chosen one's voice. We have something called sovereign thunder. Sovereign thunder. So it is time for us to come together, because the things that we are feeding our attention to, P. Diddy trial, pop the balloon, red pill, women versus men, celebrity gossip, when the new Jordan's gonna drop. Like, none of this stuff matter in the long for the entire Black Pantheon. They want to take all of our rituals, our codes, our gods, our history, mythicize it. If that's even a word, they want to they want to make it where it's not real. That's what their agenda is for us. Keep the black bodies, keep the voices, keep the skin tone, erase the frequency, erase the knowing, erase the ancestral backing. That's the war that we're up against. And y'all worried about a fucking P. Diddy trial, bro. Y'all worried about some shit that don't matter. This is what matters, is preserving us. Ashe. Okay? Like I said, this was the deepest codex I've done. It took me a month and 2 days. A month and 2 days to compile this. Okay? So, yes, this is going to be up on Instagram indefinitely. It's going to be up on Facebook for 30 days. It's going to be up on my YouTube indefinitely. This codex will be revisited for centuries. I, in communion with my guys, it's not a prediction. This is based off of the timeline that we are currently on. The elites, they're right on time in their mind. But guess what? They ain't playing for me. They ain't playing for my soul sisters and brothers to wake up. So every act of remembrance, we push their agenda back. Ashe. I love y'all. Love you guys. Keep remembering. We need to preserve Black history. Period. Love you guys. Ashe.